Q-Day. Its meaning and significance is now understood if you've been following me. Now let's discuss our readiness for this event, in other words, its impacts. Here's the thing. The Western world has been napping. Yes, we're unready for Q-Day. Why, you ask? Well, because it was thought incorrectly to be many years away from happening. Now, following its trajectory of advancement, it could arrive as early as tomorrow. Imminently, in other words. What if we lose the race? When it does arrive, the Decryption Gambit takes on real meaning. Every great scientific discovery in history has eventually been weaponized. Gunpowder, nuclear fission, the internet. Each one began as a breakthrough, and each one because of an instrument of power before it became a public good. In Decryption Gambit, Doug Collins gives us a front row seat to this process happening in real time through one of the most compelling antagonists in recent thriller fiction, General Liu. General Liu is introduced to us through Li Wen's anxiety. Even before we meet him directly, we understand him through the fear he inspires. Li Wen, drafting his confidential report on Silentium, involuntarily conjures the face of General Liu, whose reputation for strategic ruthlessness was whispered about in corridors of power. He knows that once his report lands on Liu's desk, the mineral's destiny will be dictated not by pure scientific aspiration, but by cold pragmatism and a hunger for supremacy. When Collins does bring us directly into Liu's perspective, it's one of the most chilling sequences in the book, not because Liu is cartoonishly evil, but because he is utterly coherent. He reads Li Wen's report carefully. He is not unimpressed by the science. He is not indifferent to the ethical warnings Li Wen has embedded. He simply has a different framework for understanding what Silentium means. In the dim light of his office, staring at the report that represents, in his assessment, the most significant strategic development in decades, Liu thinks not in terms of scientific promise or ethnic responsibility, but in terms of power. Specifically, in terms of information dominance. He envisions a world where China, using Silentium-enhanced quantum computing, can read everything. Every diplomatic cable, every military directive, every financial transaction, every private communication from every government that has ever opposed China's interests. Not to destroy, to know. Because knowing everything while your adversaries know nothing is the ultimate strategic position. Collins writes Liu's vision with genuine intellectual respect. This is not a stupid man. This is a brilliant strategist who has spent his career thinking about how power actually works in the modern world. And his conclusion is that the modern world runs on information. Whoever controls information controls everything else. Silentium is the key to that control. The contrast Collins draws between Liu and Li Wen is at the core of the book's moral architecture. Both men are intelligent. Both men understand what Silentium is. Both men grasp its implications fully, but they look at exactly the same discovery and simply see completely different things. Li Wen sees a scientific marvel with profound responsibilities attached. Liu sees a game changer, a means to truncate the complex and fraught global encryption arms race that had hampered strategic intelligence capabilities for decades. And here's what makes Liu particularly interesting as a character. Collins doesn't let him be simply wrong. There's a passage where Liu, even in his strategic excitement, is not blind to the moral shadows cast by such power. He understands that unchecked force could provoke retaliation and destabilization, fragile balances. He is aware of the ethical dimension of what he's contemplating. He chooses to set them aside, but not in ignorance. That's much more disturbing than a villain who doesn't understand the consequences of his actions. Liu understands them completely and proceeds anyways. This reflects something Collins clearly understands about how power actually operates. The people who weaponize scientific discoveries are rarely psychopaths. They are usually people with coherent strategic frameworks who have concluded that the strategic logic outweighs the ethical costs. This is how atomic bombs get built, how surveillance states get constructed, how biological weapons programs get funded, not through the absence of moral reasoning, but through a particular form of moral reasoning that places state interest above individual rights. Li Wen's report reaches Liu, and the ethical warnings in its margins are, as Li Wen feared, essentially noted and set aside. The mineral's capabilities become a state secret. The scientific committee is brought into a classified framework. Research proceeds under military oversight. The journey from discovery to weapon has begun. Collins uses this transition to explore a question that haunts the entire novel. What is the responsibility of the scientist in this situation? Li Wen has done everything he could to reasonably do. He reported honestly. He wrote his warnings in plain language. He recommends safeguards and international oversight, and none of it mattered because the institutional machinery of the state had its own agenda. There's a deeply human moment when Li Wen, having transmitted his report and knowing what will happen to it, feels the gravity of his discovery settle firmly on his shoulders. He is a reluctant gatekeeper to a dawn poised to reshape global power structures. He didn't want this role. He didn't seek it, but he's in it now, and there's no exit. The book's exploration of what happens when science passes from creator to state is one of its most important contributions to the genre. It doesn't give us a simple narrative of good scientists versus bad government. It gives us something more honest. Science is doing its best with a system that has its own logic, its own momentum, and its own tolerance for ethical trade-offs. And the consequence of that system operating as it does, the cascading disasters that fill the rest of the novel, emerge not from malice alone, but from the perfectly logical application of power to opportunity. General Liu is a warning, not about Chinese military strategy specifically, but about what every powerful state does with every powerful discovery. It asks first not, is it safe, but how this can serve us. Understanding the dynamic is crucial to understanding where we actually are in the quantum race today. The portrayal of General Liu in Decryption Gambit is one of the most thoughtful explorations of how scientific discoveries get weaponized that I've encountered in fiction. Doug Collins wrote a book that generally advances the conversation about power, technology, and conscience. It's on Amazon right now, ebook, paperback, and audiobook, and you'll find the link in our show notes. This is essential reading.